Welcome to this presentation and fireside chat with Planit and Specsavers about quality engineering. Software quality has a major impact on how organizations are able to conduct their business and offer customer experience. And as organizations adopt new technologies and progress digital initiatives, the complexity of systems is increasing. So getting quality right offers opportunities to be differentiated in the marketplace, whilst not focusing enough on quality could lead to brand damage or even security breaches. My name is Susanne Mattsson. I'm a practice director at Planit, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Adam Rockliffe from Specsavers, who will talk about the approach Specsavers have taken to quality engineering. So Specsavers is the largest privately owned optical group in the world, and they've got both their physical stores and a digital presence. And Adam's going to share Specsavers' story here about the company's transition to a digital business and how the QA team that Adam heads up could enable and support this journey with the help of Planit. To introduce Adam a little bit more, he has a background in consultancy and large program delivery and is specialized in assurance and risk. He works with Specsavers to help them on their journey to modernize tech delivery and implementing best practices from an assurance perspective. Adam is passionate about continual improvement and using data to track and drive improvements and reaching business outcomes. And privately, that drive and improvement thinking actually takes the shape of going after winning medals in various races and running in the outdoors. But now, for today, we're mainly talking about the Specsavers journey. So please allow me to hand over to Adam, who will tell you more about this.
Thanks, Suzanne. And hello, yes, I am Adam Rockliffe. And I'm going to talk a little bit initially just around Specsavers and give you a bit of context around how QA fits in and the journey we've been on. So Specsavers, as mentioned, is a privately owned company. It's only 37 years old, 1984, and it is privately owned, which really allows it to focus on doing good and delivering the right things for our customer outcomes. It's also passionate about being affordable and making healthcare affordable to those that really need it, and covering all the demographics from cradle to grave. So with that obviously drives in the complexity to our business. And not only that, our business is a lot broader than the optics market a lot of people see. We are number one in most of the 7 territories we serve optics markets for, but we also have audiology, we also have a vertically integrated supply chain, and all the digital complexities that come with managing a patient as a retail customer, but also as a medical patient. And what we are starting to see in our market now is an increased digital disruption. It's been in a lot of industries for a while, but we're really starting to see that come into the medical and the site test elements of our business. So in need to support that, we recognise our technology team really has to partner with our business. We really have to make sure it's ready to keep that aggressive growth and drive itself forward with all those changes coming. We needed to create a modern and solid foundation of our technology to allow the applications and systems to be running on. We needed to bring in experts to do the stuff that everyone does, the back office staff, the communications channels that we need to operate and function as a business. And importantly, we needed to do quite a major shift and to drive a lot more engineering and the things that allow us to be more unique and give that agility that allows us to continually change and adapt to the customer's needs in the areas that we specialize in and excel in. And all of that with that complexity of business I talked to, meaning that we've needed to do that on an architecture and a methodology of delivery that allows us to continue that aggressive growth as an organization and really serve all those broad customer needs that we talked to. So this creates a really big challenge for QA. We need to support that technology shift. We need to be part of that transformation. We need to drive more and more efficiency. That ultimately are positive outcomes of needing to be affordable healthcare means we need to be able to support all that genuine growth but in the best efficient way. So how do we do that as a QA function was the problem put to us. We sat down as a team and we looked at what we needed to do. We sort of thought about the key priorities that we would have as a department and came up with sort of 6 key things that formulated our approach. We needed to make sure people understood that QA was more than testing. Historically, it was very much a deliver, check mentality. QA is not that. QA is very much the engineering aspect, building the quality as we go through, making everybody accountable. Within that, you then get your modern engineering practices, making sure we can automate where possible, that we're only doing the right things, not doing too much, and allowing us to mix that risk profile with what's being delivered. And actually changing that mentality from rather than detecting issues and trying to address them to preventing them by being engaged early on, by looking through even requirements reviews and making sure we are just trying to remove any potential impacts that might come later on. So to support that mentality and that cultural shift, we recognised we needed the right capabilities and technical proficiencies within our team. We needed to have a partner to do that. We predominantly work with partners for a lot of our delivery capacity. So we need to make sure we had a partner that understood this journey, that could be part of that and supplied those capabilities and technical proficiencies we talked to. And also in that resourcing pool that we talked to, making sure that we don't just look at the technical capabilities, but we really have a good view of how they stakeholder manage, how they help the cultural shift, how they drive that change and agenda with us. So as a QA function, we sat down, we looked at who we were working with and how we operated with them, and we needed to make sure we were selecting the right partners for us to be successful. That partner needed to have the ability to scale and support the growth and the ambitious trends that we have. We also need to make sure that they are passionate about the same things as us and aligned to the way that we want to operate, not only technically, but culturally in terms of how we look after and care for our people. And obviously there was the commercial viability that had to be considered because we need to drive that efficiency and make sure we can give the right outcomes to our customers. So with this, we did a long process. We worked through a lot of the partners we were with and consolidated down. And Planit really came through as one of those partners that just absolutely clicked in terms of we can work with you and you're ticking all the boxes from all the things that we need of a partner. So we started that journey together. We've never looked back since, if I'm honest. It's been going successfully in this model for a couple of years now. We've really integrated as one team. So we use the Planit resource, but they absolutely act as if they're part of the same team as us. We don't have a them and us culture. And with that, we take advice and we share and we collaborate on all the developments and all the visions and planning that we do. We've established some really effective modern capabilities. So bringing in the experts that Planit have been able to supply us, like looking at our performance testing, looking at our security testing, not only the at the end checks that we've historically been able to do, but bringing that forward into earlier into delivery and even into our assessments, design and requirements phases. We've also demonstrated financial savings, looking at our capabilities effectively, how can we do them in the right way, at the right time and with the right people, and demonstrated real financial savings from that effort and that process we've been through. We've created alignment also with the wider teams within the department and also the business. And going back to that point around cultural shifts, that education is really important, and the team and the resource that we've had have helped us on that journey. And also, while doing all this, some fairly significant enhancements and changes to our function and how we operate. We've supported multiple large deliveries and lots of change without having any business impacting faults released through our change processes. There's a real success story that we're seeing and the journey we're going so far.
Anna, thank you so much for sharing the story of the Specsavers transformation here and how QE and QA was able to support these efforts. I wanted to ask you a few questions to just expand on what you've just told us. And I was wondering if I could ask you, how do you think that the Specsavers quality engineering approach that you had, that contributed to the success of the project?
Yeah, so I think we started to see some real pockets of this coming through, and I'll give you a good example. We've started doing a major transformation of our retail platform, and we said to the teams, these are going to be customer exposed, that the assurance approach needs to really have that robust security layer and assurance around it. So not only did we look and say this is an approach, we were engaged to planning early with the teams and helping them understand the importance of that. We then also deployed some of the new security capabilities we had and detected significant volumes of critical issues very early on in delivery. So with that, we were able to address those, we were able to fix all those problems, and that prevents a huge amount of reduction in the wastage that we would have seen by having to rework that later on in delivery. So that mentality of being in the engineering, being in the development cycles, being as early as possible, has really mean that we've impacted our delivery timelines in such a positive way.
I understand. Thank you. So in my experience, things rarely go as smoothly every time as we'd like. So were there any issues along the way that had the potential to become major problems? And if there were, how did you ensure that these didn't become a major crisis?
Yeah, so I think interestingly is when you think of some of these technical disciplines, you tend to think about problems in maybe the tooling or the actual the processes of testing potentially. But what we've really seen is that adjustment of people's understanding and behaviour being one of the biggest bottlenecks for us. So we initially deployed the resource saying, no, you've got to challenge more, you've got to be out front more, and be challenging back those delivery teams and sending them out with this message of we're empowered to do so. But actually the delivery teams weren't necessarily ready for that, and they were still thinking they were just going to dictate task and then leave people to it. So that real shift caused quite a few bumps to start with. And we recognised that, so we put a lot more education into the wider organisation. We made sure the branding and the difference was very apparent and clear. And also, as we then move forward with our resourcing, we've adapted our resourcing profile to make sure we're looking at the more holistic characters of the resource that we're deploying. Not just are they technically proficient, are they good stakeholder management, are they good at problem solving, and are they good at that kind of communication on all the different formats we need to be these days. So yes, there's definitely been bumps, predominantly more cultural than the technical competencies, but we've very much started working through those now.
Got it. So if you were to get the benefit of hindsight, are there any elements of this project or work that you would have done differently?
So I think I guess the point just mentioned around the cultural thing, I think we probably would have been a bit more proactive, made sure there was a better landing space for our resource to be deployed into in terms of understanding. I think also that the ability to measure is more important than I think we sometimes realise. If we're trying to help people understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, that reason for change is critically important, and it is very difficult sometimes, but getting and quantifying a measure that says this is why we need to change, I think it is evidently important. And in hindsight, I probably would have done a bit more upfront work of capturing that why and making it as objective as possible, so we can really not only help with that educational change, but really then demonstrate back against that baseline the progress we've made.
Right. And what can I ask you, what would you consider to be the most important attributes of a QE services partner in an agile development world for this kind of QE transformation?
So I think one of the important things for us, particularly maybe, but I generally think wider, is that acceptance that a digital transformation is unique to your business. It's very good saying you can do agile delivery. It's all great saying you've got the resource with technical competencies, but it's very rare, unless you're a startup, that you go straight into this perfect world of agile delivery. So you have to be able to have a partner that understands that. You have to understand and have a partner, that can work in both those camps, and not only that, be pragmatic enough to do that adjustment and shift as you go through that journey with you. So I think that's when we looked at partners, and obviously particularly with Planit, that they matched with us in terms of their belief of what they could do, but also that they were prepared to understand us as an organisation and where we were and help us through that journey and that transformation.
Right. Thank you. And if you could share with the with other people in the same situation, do you have any top tips on how they can ensure that their transformational projects and that business critical software is going to perform as required? What would you think those would be?
So the actual software itself, I think the first thing really is to understand what the expectations of your organisation are. It's all good targeting perfect quality, but it's a very subjective term to a certain extent. And if you're saying that no P1s is your measure of quality, it means you can be very different approach in how you're doing your assurance, and therefore the capabilities, skills, and even volume of resource you need. So I think it's the first real thing for me is understanding what you're targeting, and that's not just you as a QA team, that's you as an organisation, as a business, and your outcomes. A lot of our areas still focus on the revenue and the growth, and so we have to recognise that and say, actually, we're going to have to go a lot quicker than we probably want to some of the times. So how do we adjust and deploy the right capabilities for that? So I think that's the key thing for me is make sure you've got a combined outcome. It can't just be QA outcome. It has to be what's the delivery function trying to achieve, what is the business trying to achieve, and then it's about deploying the right capabilities to support that.
I understand. Thank you. And then moving forward within this space of software testing and QE, what are Specsavers and your team looking at implementing next? What's new? New items on the agenda that you are looking at, and how do you anticipate they will affect the business?
So I think the new thing for us, I think, is we've got all these POCs around kind of integration into CI/CD, and a lot of our execution now can be automatically fired off and reported off our delivery pipelines. One of the biggest bottlenecks in there at the moment is the provisioning of the right data. So we're really working. We've got a test data manager role. We're really using that role to understand how can we provision data fast for all of our assurance needs. So not only is it data that's fit for our functional testing, the scale we need for our performance testing, the complexities that matches the complex data sets that we've got in our organization, and making sure that they're the right size, they're available at the right times, and as much as possible through all that automation. So it just, again, gives us that extra layer of confidence what we're assuring against is a realistic position, and it's not hindering our delivery timelines and ability to be agile and make change for the business when it needs it.
Thank you, Adam. I don't have any more questions. Thank you so much for expanding on this work that you're doing with the Specsavers. And that's all for us for today.
Thank you.